Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Temple, and I worked with Dr. Freestone to study the effect of political orientation on political memory. Let's jump right in. So here's a headline. Colin Kaepernick said that the national anthem should be removed from NFL games. I want you to think about your memory of this event. Do you remember it happening? Do you remember it, but you remember it slightly differently? Or do you not remember it at all? Okay, now that you've thought about it, the truth is, this headline is false. It didn't actually happen. If you remember it happening, you're having a false memory of the event. And so this brings me to the research on false memory. The research shows that people's political biases actually do influence how they remember things. And the graph on the left, which shows the results of a study about memories of headlines surrounding the abortion referendum in Ireland, we see that participants were shown a false headline about illegal no posters or a headline about illegal yes posters. The percent of participants who had memories of these headlines was measured. The green bars represent yes voters and the pink bars represent no voters. Notice that the yes voters had more false memories of the illegal no posters than no voters did, while the no voters had more false memories of the illegal yes posters than yes voters did. The graph on the right shows similar results. Participants were shown a headline of George Bush on vacation in the wake of the Hurricane Katrina disaster and a headline of Obama shaking the Iranian president's hand. Their percent of false memories of each headline was measured. The black bars represent liberals and the gray bars represent conservatives. It turns out that more liberals falsely remembered Bush on vacation than conservatives did, and more conservatives falsely remembered Obama shaking the Iranian president's hand than liberals did. Both of these graphs are showing that our political orientation affects the way that we remember political events, and I wanted to add to these findings. I wanted to know if our political beliefs affect the way that we remember news headlines as well as politicians. I think many of us would agree that the US is extremely polarized politically right now. Will the effects that we've seen in previous research not only be replicated in our study, but be stronger because of how polarized the US is right now? To test this, we designed a study comprised of a headline phase, a politician phase, and demographic questions. The headline phase was modeled after the study designs of the previous research. In the headline phase, we presented participants with true and false headlines, so some of the events happened and some didn't. While looking at the headline, they were asked, do you remember reading or hearing this? Do you remember reading or hearing it differently? Or do you not remember this event at all? There were 4 events total, which were presented one at a time and randomly. In the politician phase, we showed participants a description of a mayor who was either conservative or liberal. After reading the description, participants took a memory test asking participants to identify their memory of statements regarding the mayor. The answer categories were the same as they were in the headline phase. I remember differently, or I don't remember. Then this process was repeated with the other mayor. The order of the mayors presented was random. Additionally, the order of the headline phase and the politician phase was randomized. Finally, participants were asked demographic questions about their political orientation, either liberal, conservative, or neither, and identified how politically informed they are. Let's take a closer look at the headline phase. When we created these headlines, we thought about how liberals often perceive conservatives and vice versa. Many times, liberals view conservatives as uninformed and extreme. Conservatives tend to view liberals as the same way. This is in part due to in-group bias, where we can see differences in our own group members, but we fail to see differences in members of other groups, leading to stereotyping and inaccurate judgments. So keep that in mind while we look at these headlines. The first false headline is that Tomi Lahren adds Mexico to Trump's list of shithole countries. So liberals would probably look at that and say, Tomi Lahren is conservative, so she'd definitely say something like that, while conservatives might not remember. Then we have the second, which is that Colin Kaepernick said that the national anthem should be removed from NFL games. Here, conservatives are probably going to think something like, yeah, he is liberal, I remember this, while liberals probably wouldn't. Here are the true headlines. Ted Cruz supports the teacher's right to bear arms in school. Bernie Sanders endorses Clinton after losing in the 2016 primaries. Again, participants were asked to identify the statement that best represents their memory of both the true and false headlines. So, I remember differently, or I don't remember. And now we're moving on to the politician phase. Here's a description of Jim Sullivan, a conservative mayor. Participants were told to read this carefully as they'd be tested on the mayor. You'll notice his background and all of his political stances are traditionally conservative, except for the last bullet point in orange. We included this to see if there was any tendency for participants to misremember this stance specifically. Then participants moved to the distraction task, in which they completed 2 recaptchas. The goal of the distraction task was to distract participants long enough that the description of the mayor was no longer in their short-term memory. Then they were given the memory test, which was based on the description of the mayor that they had just read about. They were shown these 11 statements. After each statement, they were asked to identify whether they remember reading the statement, remember reading it differently, or don't remember reading it. The 11 statements were presented randomly. The statements highlighted in red are false. So, for example, he does not support universal health care programs. The statements highlighted in orange were not mentioned at all in the description, so we don't know his stance on same-sex marriage or affirmative action. The process was repeated with the Liberal mayor, Alicia Gonzalez. Her stances were traditionally liberal, except for one stance, which was more conservative. Participants were given the description, the distraction task, and the memory test, which is what you see now. Again, the statements in red are false, and the statements in orange were not mentioned. We have 2 hypotheses, one for the headline phase and one for the politician phase. Our hypothesis for the headline phase was that participants will have more false memories of political events that align with the participants' political beliefs. So a liberal will have more false memories of an event that aligns with liberal beliefs. Our second hypothesis for the headline phase was that participants will have more false memories of a politician whose political orientation is different from their own. So a liberal will have more false memories of a conservative politician than they do of a liberal politician. We also believed that the effects from these hypotheses would be stronger in a polarized country like the United States. Here we have the results of the headline phase. The false headlines are on the x-axis, so there's the Tomi Lahren headline and the Colin Kaepernick headline. Participants' false memories of the headlines was measured. The red bars represent the conservative participants and the blue bars represent the liberal participants. For the Tomi Lahren headline, liberal participants had slightly more false memories of the headline than conservatives did, but this difference was not significant. In the Colin Kaepernick headline, the opposite effect occurred. Conservative participants had slightly more false memories than the liberal participants did. Overall, though, participants had significantly more false memories of the Colin Kaepernick headline than participants did of the Tomi Lahren headline, regardless of their political orientation. Here are the results of the politician phase, which look a little bit different. This time we compared the percent of false memories of the conservative mayor to the percent of false memories of the liberal mayor. Again, red is conservative and blue is liberal. For the conservative mayor, we found no difference between the rate of false memories of liberals versus conservatives. For the liberal mayor, we found that liberals had slightly more false memories than the conservatives did, but these results were not significant. We did find that participants had significantly more false memories of the conservative mayor than the liberal mayor, regardless of their political orientation. If we compare our results to the previous research, we can see that the results of the headline phase mirror these results. The only difference is that our findings were not significant and actually weaker rather than stronger like we had predicted. On the other hand, the politician phase shows results that are completely different. Our findings are similar to the results found by previous research, as our participants appeared to falsely remember headlines that aligned with their political orientation, but our findings were not significant. Additionally, our participants' political orientation did not affect the false memory of the mayors, but the political orientation of the mayor did have a significant effect on participants' false memories. These results suggest that the relationship between political orientation of the individual and their rate of false memory is weaker in a polarized country rather than stronger as we had predicted. Interestingly, the political orientation of politicians appears to affect our rate of false memories. More research is needed on this topic to investigate why and determine if it influences the way that we vote during elections. Thank you so much for watching my presentation, and a special thank you to Dr. Freestone and Dr. Learmonth for all of your help with my project.